and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
People ready? Okay, people ready.
They usually do it earlier.
I don't.
Number 2, we will call the July 21st, 2022 Village Board meeting to order. Roll call shows everyone except Jack, Julie, Chris, and Allie are here and they are excused. 4, agenda changes. Are there any? No. 5, consent agenda. A, July 7th, 2022 regular board meeting minutes. B, July 12th, 2022 special village board meeting minutes. C, licenses and permits as stated. And D, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, I would need a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call. Peter?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard.
We have Tom Jens, 510 West Main Street.
You guys can all see the pictures. That's my concrete apron right from my garage. Nobody ever asked for all my permissions on my property. You guys do that? All the issues that we've been having, and you just go and do that to my concrete? That's not going to come off with Dawn soap and a brush. That's in there forever. Trey tells me right from the beginning of this project, he made it perfectly clear, anything on my side is on me. You put a dam across my yard, you know I'm gonna have water issues, and he tells me it's on me. And then you do that to my driveway. After you told me you had this patch all figured out, you never did it. And now you guys end up with a beautiful park. I end up with probably a flooded garage this spring, and that. How is that ever acceptable? There ain't a person in this boardroom that would accept that on their property. I don't think I should have to do it on mine. The saddest part of it, I pay half of it. I pay part of his salary. And he's gonna treat me like this. You know I'm gonna have problems. You move the creek from the creek to the side of my yard, and you tell me to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Dean Newbert.
Yeah, I'm Dean Martin Newbert. I'm running for the 6th Assembly Republican side, along with like 40 other people. I think it's got up to be. It's five other guys. I grew up in Greenville, right? I guess before Greenville was Greenville. Greenville was like 3,000 people when I was growing up. I think it's almost 13,000 now. Went to St. Mary's in Greenville, and then graduated from here in Hortonville, right here in Hortonville 2000. Kind of got a roundabout way of getting back to the Hortonville area. Didn't really want to ever get into politics. I'm not gonna lie about that. And give you guys credit for running for offices. I've learned a lot, and probably a little too much about what it actually takes, and some of the trials and tribulations. I think there's a lot of tribulations, but a lot of the trials that go with it. Well, 2008, lost my job and got married, and then lost my job 3 months later. It was a great year. And then told my wife that I was going to start a business, and to my surprise, she said, "Yeah, go for it." Still was shocking because she was like, "How am I going to make money?" So, well, we're going to eventually make some money off the business. And 2 months later, the business wasn't like any other business, wasn't going as great as I wanted it to. So I started delivering. I delivered pizzas at night while I built the business during the day. Continued to build the business every day because we were told when we got married. She was told we could never have kids. And then in 2010, she got pregnant with our oldest child. So the doctors just were wrong, which was a great thing. And had our first child, the pizza delivery business was over for me because the business was doing pretty well, and I didn't have to do that anymore. But I still would have, but just you run out of time. I had 3 kids, moved to Appleton in 2010, lived there. In 2017, we sold that house, and we were looking at Hortonville, Ellington, Triacton, pretty much all the small towns, because that's where we're used to. She's from Mackville, I was from Greenville. Ended up finding a place next to Tony Lauer, so I'm pretty sure most people in this room know who Tony Lauer is. If you don't, he's mayor of Stevensville. Pretty prestigious honor that I have, but he doesn't like it. And never, just kept being involved in the community. I started coaching t-ball, still coaching. Actually, last night was my last night at Hortonville coaching t-ball after 8 years. I threw myself a party. First couple years of t-ball was pretty fun, but the last 5 years, or last 2 years was like, okay, let's just get to the competitive stuff. I've coached down here, t-ball, softball, a little bit of baseball helped out with, and then I coach St. Mary's basketball while I run my business. My business is located in Appleton today, but as of September 1st, you guys will probably find out we're moving to the old nail factory here in Hortonville. Not for political reasons, because the rent was cheap and the building was big enough. That was way before we started doing that negotiation beforehand. And then I never really wanted to get into politics. Always watched it, didn't always care too much for it. I didn't care too much about the people in it. But 2020 came and we all saw what happened. My business did fine. I run a supply, A1 professional supply. We do toilet paper and everything from toilet paper to gloves to masks, good masks, to just about all supplies is fine in assisted living or a nursing home. So my business did better than fine. But my friend's bar didn't do better than fine. Hairstylists didn't do better than fine. And yes, the government gave them money. And if you look at the gas pump, that money was not free. It was never just handed to them. And it irritated me more and more that a governor could make a decree saying that you're not essential. I'm not saying COVID wasn't real, because I've had it, but I'm saying that we should never, in my opinion, we should never let the government shut down a business because they're not good enough. So I got really bothered by that, and then the mask mandate came from Governor Evers. And as a person who sold masks, I've been OSHA trained in masks, that mandate was awful. It would have been one thing if it would have talked about filters and certain masks, but my kids were wearing rags in their head, not in their face. And I'm sorry, but that rag actually hurt. And I know that because I've been trained in it for the last 13 years. There's no science that says that gaiter or t-shirt or whatever they were putting on did anything. In fact, the 3-ply masks only work for about 90 minutes in certain situations. And I got really upset, and Jim Steinke, so I live in Ellington. You guys were always in District 6, I was in District 5. So for 30 days in a row, I messaged or called Jim Steinke or in some kind of communication with his office, and his staffer told me after 31 days that maybe I should just do something about this myself. I thought at the time I was kind of mad. I was like, probably called him a couple bad words when I was going, but he was right. He was wrong. We all sat and we watched things that we all sit today and watch things we don't like. You guys have taken action, obviously, by being on the board. But a lot of people just like to be keyboard warriors or sit in a bar stool. I like doing that too, but it doesn't do any change. It doesn't help your community. So the more I did some thinking about it, helped some school board races, looked at some county board races, and then when the redistricting mess, which I'm sure you guys had to deal with, because it was such a deadline that they actually went past. And I mean, did you guys have problems with that at the village? No, it was the last day, and then the day after when we could actually do it. I got put into 6 with Hortonville, which does make sense, because Ellington and Hortonville are a whole lot more like Shadow than they are Appleton. And it's not, and knowing Shadow like I do now, it's very similar people. And then Wittenberg, very similar hard work ethic. And I'm not saying Appleton doesn't have it, but the old school values really stick out, and the community really says it. So I looked at it, looked at my wife, thought for sure she would say no. And like once in a while, maybe she should not like my crazy ideas, and she said, yeah, I think it's time to do this. So we started to look into it, got the signatures, got on the ballot. I was the first one to be on the ballot, and kind of just took off from there. I support life. I'm 100% pro-life. I was endorsed by Wisconsin Pro-Life last week. I'm a Second Amendment guy, AQ rated by the NRA just 2 weeks ago. Support parental control of education, and that doesn't mean a parent can just say what the teacher they want the teacher to say, but the parent has to be engaged too. Now we've seen a lot of teachers walk into school, or parents walk into school boards and scream and yell bloody murder without ever having to know what actually they've seen. So that does go both ways when I say that. The school board has to be accountable, but the parent has to be accountable as well. Accountability lacks in our society a lot, so a lot of people can scream and yell. I support confidence in our elections again. And not to say Hortonville has, I mean, I haven't heard anything about Hortonville, but we saw some stuff in Green Bay that went down. You know, they've openly broken the minutes of open records laws up there. We saw some drop boxes that are now deemed illegal. Stuff like that, it has to change. I was in Ellington 2 weeks ago and they said, you don't support us. I said, I absolutely support you. And if that new law has to be wrote, I'm going to be going to you because like the chief election inspector and the town clerk over there, they're the ones that are doing it all the time. I need their input. I don't know everything. In fact, if you ask my wife, most days I don't know anything. But I'm willing to listen. As a leader in my business, as a leader on the field in the courts, you don't know everything, and it's your ability to listen. In industry, manufacturing, farming. We've lost a lot of our farming here, but this district has quite a few of our big farms in the state when you get to the northern part of it. The farming, tourism is huge up there, and just all industry. We have to support that. Without the industry, we don't have a whole lot. And then our law enforcement. This will take me off to the day. My best friend is a cop. He actually went to Hortonville too. He's a cop in the city of Milwaukee. And when our governor came down in August of 2020 or 2021, when the Kenosha incident happened, and accused that officer the next day of murder, that I was enraged. I'm not saying whatever was right or wrong.
Dean, may I interrupt you? We're limited to 5 minutes, so can you kind of wrap it up?
Yep, and supporting for our police.
Okay,
I think I got it all covered, but appreciate your consideration on ours tonight, and thanks for letting me talk today.
good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
7, we have committee reports. There are none. 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There's none. 9, new business, a discussion and possible action on committees.
If you look at, I kind of did a little synopsis of what Craig and I have kind of been talking about. We have a lot of planning that needs to get done on committees. They're going to be easier to accomplish these goals. Discussing long-term planning. If we want to do a real long-term finance planning, we need to have long-term infrastructure facility evaluations, pavement management system, water utility, wastewater treatment plants, maintenance and improvement plan, capital equipment replacement plans, public parks, operations and infrastructure expansion. A lot of that stuff is easier done at committee level and discussions with the committee.
Agreed. The
And
problem we have is we're not privy to exactly everything that you guys want to discuss, so it's hard for us as committee members, or committee heads to call a committee meeting, public safety, public works, so
Right.
leave it up to you guys to
Right.
set those up.
right,
Okay, that's what you're asking.
right.
Okay.
We want to utilize them more in order to have some of these longer conversations.
Totally agree.
And the other thing that came up with the part of the organizational review in there, the PPA suggested basically reducing the size down to 3 board members, and then potentially adding 1 or 2 citizen members for our committees. And that's up to you guys if you want to discuss potentially doing that. I know it's hard to get committee members, but I would say,
I was just gonna tell you, good luck getting public members.
Yeah.
well,
I really like that idea, though. I think,
if we post it and see what we get, it's a lot different than planning and zoning, I'll say. I think you're gonna get a lot more people who want to talk about parks and facilities and potentially public works than are gonna really wanting to do with planning and zoning.
So you'll limit it to 5, but 3 of them will be board members and 2 outside.
Potentially, if we posted to have people apply for the positions
Yeah.
and we get nothing back, don't need to change anything.
Okay.
But if you guys were in favor of potentially having citizens on it, we can post, and if some people apply, then we should change it and not.
So why can't we leave it as is, because it's worked? We have the 5 members who do know mostly everything that are on these, where outside people do not, but
I
let them
I
still
wouldn't
come in.
really agree
You
that
still
guys
ask the
know
public
the
to come
details
in.
yet.
And how many come in when we have any meeting, even if we ask them?
I understand.
It's
Just
like
saying.
pulling teeth to get people to come in, and now we're gonna put them on a committee?
A lot of people would rather come and be on a committee where they feel like they're a part of something rather than sit in the crowd and not really be able to talk to you.
So leave it at 5 and ask people to come in then. Then we'll have a committee of 7.
I would say for the time being,
Yeah.
would be my suggestion would be go ahead and, well, I actually have a question too, but would be to leave the 4 committee members now. But see if we can get 2 people from the village to come and run it for a little while and see if it works out. And if it does, then we can revisit and step down to 3 if we think that that's appropriate.
There's actually 5 on the committees,
There's 5.
not 4.
Well, yeah.
4 board members and the president.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a step halfway, right? See if we can get some community involvement. So, and then revisit if we want to reduce the size of the board members after that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. My question would be, if we do get some responses, how are we going to decide?
Appointments are all done by the president and
Okay.
confirmed by the board.
Okay.
So how are we advertising for this?
Well, we could post it on our website and on Facebook.
How about the Village Voice? I know it doesn't go out till October, but
We could be
I
the
think
village
a
voice as
short-
well.
a short-
I think it'd be easier to potentially talk to people about what it would be. I mean, I think for our idea is to potentially meet once a month, at least with the Facilities and Public Works Committee, because I think there is a substantial amount.
What do we do if there are people that apply for 1 or 2 but don't apply for the others? How do we have a separate, what if there are people that are interested in being in the parks, the public facilities, but there's no one for public works? Then what do you do? I mean, just hypothetically,
you
right?
can
Are
just
you gonna
leave
have a
it the way
mixed
it is.
bag?
You could, yeah, I mean,
That's okay for us to have a mixed bag where there's village participation in the parks, but there's no participation in public works?
Well, Public Works would stay the same because nobody applied.
right.
But public facilities,
It's just a trial.
if there's 2 people that apply, well, then it's up to the village president to
I
decide.
think a lot of the ideas are, we just did planning for a street, right, for Cedar Street.
Agreed.
And there was really no conversation until the fact we had the special assessment about what was actually going on the street.
right.
So I think at that point, it makes me question, do we need to change things up so that?
I'm not arguing that.
Right.
My concern is that
Right.
if it's not uniform across each of the committees, do we have a problem where
No.
people are having a say in the parks, but they apparently don't care, and then we come back later and say, well, here's my concern. They come back later and say, well, we weren't part of the committee for the roads.
They didn't apply.
I agree.
You just keep it open. Like, right now, we have 8 out of our 9 for planning and zoning. It's an open seat. If someone applies for it, most likely they'd get it. So it basically is waiting for an application to come in for it. It's posted on our website, but
You don't have the same obligation to fill a vacancy on a committee that you would on your board.
On the board.
Worries me a little bit, but
I've had that before. 0 people on Public Works, Parks, oodles.
because they don't know
And
anything
it's worked.
because they don't know anything about public works, but they really like to have
They're-
pickleball or basketball in the park or
Well,
a dog
yeah.
park.
Who's interested in how to build a street?
Right.
Until
Until
there
you
is a
get
few,
assessed.
there is a few, but, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But there's more to it than just that too. So, it's just building a street, there's a lot more to it.
I mean, I'll be interested to
So-
see the interest that how many people apply for like public works. I'd be very interested to see. Well, I mean, I'm happy. I think we should try it, but
Right.
it would be interesting to see how that plays out. How many people say, "I
Well,
want to be a part of works."
Right now, we have no openings in either one of the 2. Is that correct? both committees are filled with the 5.
Yeah.
We're not
Okay.
set up.
Yeah,
So,
And then I don't think the executive committee should be included to have public people in it.
who?
Yeah, I don't either.
I
Oh,
think we're
because you have
looking
it
at
in
just the
here.
two.
That, I just
Just the two
copied word for
committees.
word what they had.
Oh, because I'm like, the executive committee
Should not
sometimes
involve,
discusses some very
Yeah.
private things that, I mean,
Still
you're
open.
talking employees, you're talking discipline, you're talking,
Right. Well,
just different
and
things
we don't
that,
really use it at all
that
anyway.
just board members should be involved in,
Yeah, I think that one should be removed for sure, but I think,
yeah.
Right.
let's
I-
find
I
out,
was-
let's find out the interest, let's see.
To
if
be
there's
honest, I was
interest.
only thinking of the 2 committees, not
Yeah.
necessarily the others.
2 are huge.
Let's see if
Maybe
there's
what
interest.
we could each,
Yeah, 3
each do
committees.
is think about people we
Right,
know.
but I was specifically going for public works and public facilities.
So
That's-
you're not gonna do public
Public safety?
safety?
I mean, we can post it, I really didn't have a care in the world so much of public input there, but I don't know if they meet as much.
I
This
think
was-
that- I think if
the
you do it for
reason-
one, you
the
gotta do it
reason-
for all, right?
Yeah,
They
I would think
very
it's gotta be
seldom
across the board.
Unless there's something.
But the reason that these 2 are gonna be meeting more is because we're doing long-term planning, and
I agree,
it's, I think.
but if you're gonna do it for your, I think you should do it for.
Right, I mean, I can post it.
You may
but-
not get interest anyway, so it won't matter anyway.
Do we have a limit to the size of the committees? So,
I mean, you obviously don't want them gigantic.
no, I mean, but we don't have to change anything to add to,
so
community
you're gonna have
members.
7?
Well, until we figure out if it's gonna
I
work.
would have to double check the ordinance
Okay.
to see if it's in there.
If it's by ordinance and it specifically
Right.
states, then we would have to do it.
I think,
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I think we removed all ordinance and we made it as a resolution, but I gotta make sure.
Okay.
Which would still require another resolution on it.
So, just, I was curious on input for that, so.
And basically, you just put on the bottom of your agenda that there could be a quorum, which we should have on every agenda,
That's what the
actually.
agenda really is.
And, I mean, anybody that's not on that certain committee, that's on the board can come to that meeting.
Right,
So,
that's,
I
I mean,
mean,
that's the
we
point
can
of
have 9
posting.
people there, 20, you know?
But they can't offer
They can't
input.
speak, yeah.
Yeah, they do. They just can't vote.
They can't vote
but they
to
can,
make a
they can speak. Oh,
recommendation.
sure, absolutely.
Right,
Oh, sure.
they don't do the voting.
That's what's nice about the committee.
But they
it's open.
still can come and listen
Yeah.
Yeah.
and, you know, sit out there and listen.
Yeah, the exception would be if the.
Because
the
they're
closed session
actually-
Would be the only exceptions.
And we just post, we have a quorum, which is quorum anyway with 5.
Yeah, so what are we gonna do?
So we leave it as
Advertise
this and
for 2.
advertise.
Advertise for 2?
See what happens.
For those 2 committees,
Just advertise for them, see what happens.
The 3, that's fine.
or 3?
Safety, public.
It'll probably come back at the next meeting, obviously, if there's a issue with ordinance or resolution, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And when you post it too, you could post it as gauging interest.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
See how much
I would
you
say
have
rather than an
before you change your
application, it should be in,
ordinance.
is there, yeah, interest?
Okay.
Yeah, public interest.
That way you wouldn't have to change the resolution unless it actually comes to fruition.
Okay.
We
Good.
don't need a motion or anything right now, do we?
No.
I mean, just, okay. B, discussion on options for road funding.
So out of, I kind of did a little synopsis below what we just talked about in my report, talking about basically 4 different ways we can fund some road. Each kind of has a pro and con. The transportation utility, like I think I stated in my email when I sent out the Waupun packet,
Yeah.
that legal is telling us that we should hold off on that until potentially it's settled.
Well, we crashed and burned in the beginning, and that's being appealed. And it, we had stipulated to an appeal and a petition directly to the Wisconsin Supreme Court before we even had a decision from the circuit court judge. We didn't know what he was going to decide, but we knew either side would appeal regardless. And there's just a lot of uncertainty as to how the courts will ultimately handle those. And Buchanan, we're getting a lot of requests for refunds for fees that have already been collected. And I'm sure Cynthia or Maggie and Buchanan would be happy to talk to you about their experience. Just, it seems to me as though there are a number of municipalities that are already testing it out, and let them be the ones to battle test it. But you can certainly try. You're almost 100% certain that you will be sued if you were to implement that at this point.
So, going along with her, my suggestion is to hold off on that, even though I do think it's a better option to the village in the future. But for now, I think you could either do debt financing and debt finance the full project, which means taxes would increase heavily. Or you could do kind of a mixed bag of debt financing and special assessment.
In the form of a what?
So if you did if you did a mixed bag of it, you could do, let's say this year's project, which was $320,000. We had $120,000 of it that was outside of water and sewer utility. So, you know, you could put on the taxes about, let's say, $100,000 of it. So then you're assessing $28,000 of it to the property owners. So the property owners would probably be getting about $1,000 or less of a bill rather than.
What is that, is the plan then for all future road work like this, that we have a fixed rate that we charge per house, and then we supplement and pay the rest?
You can do it that way, or you can do it the opposite way, where you always do $100,000 in taxes for that road, and whatever's left over gets assessed.
You know,
By lineal footage?
No, but
No?
No.
depends on the situation.
Your assessments should always be case by case. That's
Yeah.
why we eliminated the policy, because what you assess a brand new $1.5 million home and what you assess a $200,000 home might be different, or how long you give them to pay. And the statute builds in that discretion and flexibility. You don't want to back yourselves into a corner where you have to continue to, well, this is our policy, so this is how we always do it and how we always will do it.
I agree, but
It's
we
problems.
have that situation now, and we still have angry people because they're,
Well,
No.
right?
there are a number of reasons, though, that make that a unique situation. And,
I'm talking more of the Cedar Street one more
oh,
than
I'm
the,
sorry, I thought,
I'm
Right,
talking
I
more
mean-
Cedar Street than the,
But you,
wow,
I would guess that if they've had 28,000 in total between the 14 houses, I think it is, or so, you'd have way less people here. And way less that would care. Especially if you give them 2 or 3 years to pay. It's all feasible then for most of those people. And otherwise, we're gonna just do what we've been doing, which is the large special assessments. They're probably not gonna go away for the most part. I mean, it's,
I guess I'm just trying to think ahead of how to make it so that people don't lose their minds over it, because if you've got a project that's this big and let's do Cedar Street, right, we're gonna pay $100,000 for that chunk. But we have a much bigger project down the road and we're still only gonna pay $100,000. Like, you're gonna still have people mad, right, because the dollar amount's still bigger. They have the same square footage as this guy who just got his road done on Cedar Street, but they got a better deal because they, 100,000 of that project is
right.
a larger portion of the project as a whole.
And that's why potentially doing the long-term planning, the way that it should be, is we should be doing engineering the year before. So that
Agreed.
And that'll prepare us more for understanding where we're gonna be for the next year for borrowing. So then you take your borrowing for that next year based off of what conversations we have here. And you could always determine it however you guys want to. It doesn't necessarily have to be, it's only $100,000 this year, because we did only $100,000 last year. You could figure out how you wanna do it, and do it that way. Whether it's you wanna make sure that, you know,
I understand what we're trying to do. I'm just
Right.
trying to make sure we're not closing one can of worms to open up another one down the road. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
it's
no
a can
matter,
of worms regardless.
yes,
Yeah,
but
no
I'm trying to
matter what.
minimize how
But don't put yourself in a position where
you're
you
locking it
promise
in.
to handle it one way,
Right.
and then that way, for whatever reason, that we can't anticipate sitting here now, because we don't have a crystal ball, doesn't apply in the future.
I agree. I'm just trying to look at it from all angles because I can see this
Yeah,
being
and that's the way to look
a
at it.
can of worms, how to minimize that can of worms.
Don't we already pay, like 60% as a village? And it gets distributed across the tax levy? And then the special assessment's
Or-
like 40 per, how much does the village pay and how much does the
Well,
rest
right
of the-
now,
project.
we're paying about 200,000, well, the water utility is paying 200,000.
Okay,
The village hasn't set anything for either of those two projects. Because they're water and sewer projects that are stemming these projects.
Well, it's still our, I mean, it's
Okay.
still village money, right?
Right,
So-
right, it's just
yeah.
a different fund.
Different fund.
but
Different fund.
It's not tax-based,
Right.
so it's not taxpayers technically through the tax system, they're paying elsewhere, yeah.
So we're already paying a percentage for a majority of the work that we do. But we're just discussing changing the percentage for the most part and pulling it from another bucket.
Right.
Is what you're
Right,
what
it
you're
would reduce
proposing.
the special assessment on the houses, as much as possible.
This is all future conversation, right? So it's still not gonna solve our problems for these,
Well,
or could, I guess.
I think if we figured out that we wanted to kind of go this route going forward, you might want to do something going backwards as well for this year and try to figure something out, so.
And you're referring to one specific project, and that's Cedar Street right now, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
As you-
I would not consider a new subdivision to be part of those
Same.
No, I agree.
amounts.
Which is why you look at everything individually,
Yeah.
look at every case
Yeah.
differently.
Right.
Case by case.
Yes.
And
Remain
it might be
flexible.
something as simple as length of time to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other option with the special assessments you could do. If you just want to keep doing the special assessments, we could extend out the amount of time.
But we might avoid some of this, like you said, if we actually do have public coming up to these meetings, they at least know it's coming, right? So,
Right. And that's kind of the thought with planning the year before. You know, some neighborhoods, I don't know, that'd be more of a question of legal, I don't know how she'd feel, but inviting this group in who you know you're gonna be doing work in front of to kind of talk through the project with them if they wanna come. Right. And, you know, kind of going over options for certain things. Because you're getting your sidewalk done, you get your sidewalk done when the sidewalk thing's there, it's gonna be a lot cheaper than in 5 years or so when some kid breaks your sidewalk. And you have to pay for yourself. So, I mean, those are conversations to have with the residents at that time.
I don't disagree, I just wanna
Yeah,
make sure that
okay.
we're
No, I know.
minimizing our cans of worms.
Well,
In a perfect world, someone wins one of these transportation utility fee cases, or there's a legislative fix, and then we know exactly what you can do and how to do it. The handful of pending cases now, I think each attorney's taking a different approach. Someone's
Based on-
gotta have a winning argument at
How
some
many
point, right?
lawsuits are there out there?
two main ones that I've heard of, which is Pewaukee and Ridge.
And then Buchanan, I think,
Yeah.
does Gibraltar have one right now? I think I heard that Gibraltar did. Those are all the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Based off the numbers from the Waupun, Ayler's report, I can see why they're going to court. I mean, you
Well, it's the
can't-
businesses.
Yeah, you can't throw a $1,000 a month bill, extra utility bill to every restaurant in town. I mean, you can't go to
It's not
Subway
wrong.
and,
That's an annual.
yeah, $11,000 a year, so
Yeah.
1,000, you know, and they have more people to distribute it across, so it's probably be more for us. So you'd be pushing $1,000 a month to $1,500 a month for Dairy Queen.
It would,
Yeah,
well,
you're gonna get
Well,
sued.
it would depend on the study that you do. I mean, it's a completely different town.
Yeah,
You know, it's triple the size, which
Yeah.
means triple the I mean, they're doing a lot more projects than we are.
mhm.
And their projects are a lot larger than ours, where we kind of do these tiny little strips,
yeah,
and most places do the full street. So
yeah.
it's a little different in price. I would say it'd be similar percentage-wise, if you looked at the percentage graph of how much is, who's paying what. But otherwise, what you're doing is, everything's being subsidized by your residents right now,
Yeah,
Right.
rather than the businesses.
Contribute.
And the
Yeah.
businesses are contributing nothing, the school's contributing nothing. So, I mean, those are the tiny little,
well, I
Right.
mean,
And
the
typically it's not
businesses
the
pay
dairy-
property taxes too.
well, they pay a smaller amount percentage-wise for what they compare, in comparison
Yeah.
to what.
Well, I mean, I understand,
Right.
and it struck me when, because we had brought up the churches, right? Even the Waupun numbers they were $700 a year they were gonna get from the church.
Right,
So, I mean, that's
it's nothing for them.
nothing.
Right,
No, I mean, it's not worth enacting it on a church. I mean, we might as well just leave them be, but, I mean, for $700, it's crazy. But, I mean, the numbers for the businesses were,
And I
Crazy.
don't know what those numbers were there, but I mean, you can, our thought is you can set it where you feel it's reasonable to set it.
right.
yeah,
And it's based on anticipated trips. So the Dairy Queen, although a drive-through might complicate that, I don't even know how we handle drive-throughs in Buchanan. But a Dairy Queen with 8 parking spaces is gonna be treated differently than a grocery store with 50.
yeah. Well, the thing that I looked at with it was, we do have a smaller community, right? And we have smaller public works, but we still have the same, we have a similar overhead, and then you have the rest of the public works. So we have an overlapping overhead, but we have less businesses and less people to distribute that costs over. So I don't see the numbers being that much different, even though they're 3 times our size, and they do 3 times the projects, but they get to distribute it across more businesses and more people, where we don't have as many businesses or people. And I imagine something like Black Otter, and if you start talking about the number of trips, sit out there and see how many cars come in and go, and if you imagine doing a study and said, okay, well, Black Otter, you have to pay $2,000 a month now, because we calculated that you were bringing in all these people and they're all driving on the road, so that's gonna cost you $2,000 a month extra in utilities. Yeah, that's gonna be a lawsuit.
Right, but if we're allowed to do it by state law, which is what everyone's complaining about, then there wouldn't be a lawsuit. But I would argue that it would depend on what we get back in our report
Yeah.
and what we, because I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that we would want to do that to any of our businesses. It's depending on what it gets back, to do the report and actually see what that number is, I think is important, rather than just predicting out by looking at this one study that was done in a certain way.
Make sure this takes effect after June 1st of 2025, when my lease expires.
Yeah, that's good enough.
I mean, you know, when you talk about a small sandwich coffee shop in 11,000, and I'll just use that number, maybe less, could be more. That's a big hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Yeah.
huge hit.
Yeah.
So your cup of coffee went from $3 to $6.
Now you're Starbucks.
Yeah, now you're Starbucks.
Well,
But then we get more traffic.
all I'm gonna
Because
say
we're
is,
Starbucks.
we have an issue with our streets.
Yeah.
We need to fund it somehow.
I know.
So these
I
are-
totally agree.
So
You know-
these are our options.
It just has to be structured right.
An option, went online, looked at some different communities. What they're doing is, okay, we're doing the budget for next year, right?
Mhm.
So we don't do any streets next year, but we have the budget for next year. So now, 2024, we throw some more in that budget, now we do a street. So we might have to do street every other year, not every year.
We're already planning for that.
That's,
But now you're talking a lot more breaks potentially because of and that can be more costly. We spent how much, 45 grand this year on breaks already from the one
But that's
area.
rare.
Currently.
Not
but
every
you-
year do we spend 45,000 on a break,
But we are behind on reconstruction.
I
And
understand.
this is why we need to kind of have these long-term planning talks so that we can show you,
Yeah,
this is our listing of ones, and unfortunately, they're all in that same area for right now, coming up in the next few years. But, you know, we have town next year, which we're already shrinking down probably, at this point, unless we get the grant for it. Then you have Main Street, which has to happen regardless, on 24, so you can't hold anything that year. You have year 25, I believe, is Embarrass and Mill the next year. You got Spruce the year after. I mean, we have
easy.
Geezy and there's
depot,
Right.
mill, there's a list.
That's part of the long-term financial plan, is taking out the larger loans over a longer period of time, so you can build up that amount, correct? But we also have to look at, okay, so now instead of having most of our streets caught back up in 10 years, we're talking 20 years. So some of these streets, like Easy, instead of 2032, you're looking at 2042. And I don't think the road's gonna last that long at this rate over there. So it's something we have to look into a little more in order to see what the financials are gonna be, but there's not a great solution that we're in. And this is just streets we're talking about. We're not even getting to the equipment we have that is outdated 20 years. I mean,
But this is all for discussion at the Public Works Committee meetings.
That's where we wanna start, yeah,
Okay, so,
absolutely.
but
But,
for
you know,
road
if I
funding-
may, I want to try to get as much in before I have to leave.
yeah,
If I may, can we just curtail this and just, you guys set up the public works and public facilities, all the
right.
committee meetings and bring that up?
Well, the funding portion, we're still gonna have to figure out sooner than later.
Well, I know that, but those basic discussions could happen in the committee meeting.
We don't have time.
Oh, wow.
That one I know.
You have 2 roads that are about to be done in mid-August. We're gonna have to owe money really quickly. So we're gonna have to either figure out what we're gonna do with special assessments.
You
sooner
better
or
call a
later.
meeting next week.
Well, I mean, at the next meeting, we can talk about road funding, but
I know that.
if-
But public works, couldn't we have a committee meeting next week to get some basic discussion down, or are you saying,
well, this is more on road funding, not necessarily road construction.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh.
that's,
I thought they kind of went hand in hand,
So
but I
could
guess
you
I'm
come,
wrong.
it
could you give us a
Eventually
figure,
will.
different, if we paid this much, how much taxes would increase, or how much our loan would be, how much assessment, I know that's a lot of extra work, so if you, like,
Yeah, I mean,
different possibilities for breakdown?
Yeah, I mean, I already looked at it a few times. I mean, it's, depending on what it is, I did it just for town drive to have it fully be funded through tax levy, and it was about $150 for a $150,000 house. But that's for the full project of $600,000 project, so.
Would you say 150 for 150? That's
Everyone.
edible.
I guess maybe that would be easier to understand for,
Yeah, if we
you know,
had it in
just
front of us.
examples,
Okay.
for
Now
me anyway.
I just needed to kind of narrow down what you guys want me to target. That's kind of the point of this too.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll bring that for the next one.
I would target looking at different percentages as well.
Okay.
I mean, I think,
Yep.
I think eliminating special assessments altogether is
Is-
gonna cause problems too.
I
Yeah,
agree.
Right, because these people that paid for their road 2 years ago, and then nobody else to pay for their road now, I think, you know, there might be a percentage to float
Yeah.
around there somewhere.
So
A
it has to be,
hybrid. I like
it has
the
to be a
hybrid
blend of
approach.
two. I would
Yeah.
think it has to be a blend of both.
Yep, I think we could find a way
Yeah.
to do that.
With a lot of flexibility.
yeah, because you
Yeah.
think industrial park paid 100%.
Mhm.
Now we're gonna ask
Yeah,
them.
they did.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, we gotta be careful where we go with this.
right, no,
Okay. We'll move to C, discussion and possible action on R-16-22, amending facade loan program funds.
So this is just to, increase the amount that can be given out potentially. 12,000 for the loan right now currently is what we can do max, for a facade loan. It substantially doesn't really help too much nowadays. So the idea was to increase it. I don't really have a preference. I mean, I put in there 24,000, doubling it, but if you guys want to push it down a little much, if it's a little high, I'm fine with that. I just kind of wanted to know what your guys' thoughts are.
How much funds are in that account?
I think there's, I think I wrote it 36 maybe.
38, 319, 17.
Yep.
Well, that doesn't leave a lot for
That's
one,
for
maybe
one
one and
person.
a half for smaller amounts, but
Currently, so the other thing coming in a little bit would have been to look at adding funds to it. It's part of our downtown plan anyway through TID 5. potentially, but we don't really have much funds in TID 5, but basically, the plan in TID 5 was to put 100,000 into that facade loan program, so that when you have the reconstruction of Main Street, you have brand-new looking businesses down there
Right,
to bring in people.
but that's 3 to 4 years out.
Right, but,
It's gonna take a while to build that up.
Yeah.
right,
So I'm a little concerned that you're doubling it.
yeah,
I don't have a problem maybe increasing it to, and I realize costs have gone up, but, yeah, maybe 15 to 16, adding another 3 to 4. That's my opinion. I mean, we utilized that.
Yeah.
It worked well.
and
We
it's,
didn't
Right.
spend it all.
most businesses that have done it since I've been here, well, I'd say a third of them actually, because there's only been 3. The one Michael Davis did, he paid it back within a year. So he had no interest on his loan, and that's kind of the goal of it. 5 years, no interest, so basically, your best bet is to try to pay it off in 5 years, and if you
Right.
get that done, you have no interest, let's update the downtown as quickly as possible and get our money back, so.
I mean,
I'm fine with whatever, I just think it needs to be increased from 12, that's my point.
okay, I'd recommend 15. I'd up it to, and then review it next year, and as we get closer to 2025, when we do the Main Street, maybe then we go up to 25,000.
So where does this money come from to put into this account?
It's,
General fund.
general fund,
General
it's
fund?
reserves.
So you gradually add to it over the
So,
next few
as of right
years?
now, I'm not adding anything, it's whatever is there.
It's a balance sheet.
Right, this
Yeah.
approval has nothing to do with any adding of funds. I have to do some more research on some of the older, the way they had things labeled before. There's 32,000 that is part of an old village rehab fund, which I don't know if is state money or federal money, or if it was something the village started themselves in order to fund it, and then it just sat because it's been sitting there in the same spot for a few years now. So I gotta do some more background research to see on that, because there might be just tied up funds that we could use some shift over.
So is the 32,000 what's due to us right now?
So we-
Outstanding?
So we have, 32 outstanding.
And what is it, I mean, what's the age of
What's the
that?
fund
30
balance?
38.
30.
2 of them are newer, so they're gonna be done in, I think it's closer around 30s, 2030s area.
So based on that,
And then one is, in perpetuity until they wanna pay it.
we keep
It was an
a
older,
$70,000 budget in there right now.
technically, yeah.
What's the average borrow on that?
Closer to 12.
Is it?
Usually, most people do the max. I think the
It'd
one.
be 5 people. At 70,
Yeah.
it'd be 5 people if it maxed out.
Right. And we earn interest off of the ones that let it go past the 5 years, and it's compounded annually.
Minimal loan.
No,
No?
it was minimal.
Oh,
We
you-
changed that when
Changed
we
that.
changed it the last time in early 2020.
Okay. So is this a match?
Only when it's signage
Oh,
is the way it works.
ooh. Maybe we want to change that. And the reason I say that is, let's suppose that I have a contract with somebody who's going to fix the front of my building, put new windows and stuff in, and it's $20,000. Well, if I put in 10 and I get this facade loan for 10, as
With a lien
opposed,
on your property.
what?
With a lien on your property.
No, I know that, I
Right.
agree. But my point is, if the village were to give them the full 20, that limits the number of applicants that we could actually fund.
I like that idea.
So I'm, everything you do with the or with any grant or anything is usually a match.
Right. The issue is manpower. So when you do that, now I have to get verification from the person that they're getting a quote from. The work's getting done right, and that's why we changed it before, was because we wanted to get rid of a lot of that background work that ended up was why it sat for years. Because what ended up happening is administrators don't have time to sit there, go around, or our public works director to go around to the properties, make sure that the right work's getting done, that there's not fraud being committed by someone giving a fake invoice. And for what? We already have the lien on the property. We can get our money back if we need it. It's,
Yeah, what would be the point of it? We already put the lien on the property anyway,
right,
but even if it was fraud, we still,
right, we get our money back.
we still,
That's,
yeah.
it's
so
just more work if
You
I
know,
have to, if
make
I
it
have
part of
to-
the application process. They have to submit, make them do all the
well,
work.
they have to get a permit, so the permit part of it would be the scrutiny as far as, you know, the
Right.
contractor, or what
Right.
work is being done, and it would
It-
fall on Paul's
Right.
plate.
I think for the most part, most of the time, it's always way over what we're getting anyway. But I can look at that and add it in.
You know, that,
eventually.
my
I think it would
concern,
stretch the money.
hmm?
It would stretch it. the
It would, it would stretch it, especially going into 2025. And if we add, maybe every year we add a little bit more funds, allocate some more funds to that and build it up to 100,000 or 150,000. Put a max on it, you know, no more than 10 grand, which they have to put half in, so your total deal is 20 grand. I mean, that's something I think we should talk about.
It depends on how many people you're gonna have, you think are gonna take advantage of it.
Well,
We're not gonna be able to fund enough, so if you
Well,
think
right
you're gonna
now,
get 7,
I have
we're really
to, I have to
downtown,
pretty
then-
much beg business owners downtown to do anything.
I know that.
So that's my point.
We've been down that road for
Right,
years.
so it's, if I have to make it more complicated for them, I don't.
They're gonna do it.
Right, I think part of the idea is getting them to do it with us, but if they don't wanna do it, at least we have the lien, they're gonna pay, we're gonna get interest off it. I mean, I know it,
It's easier.
I mean, I can add that to the agenda for next time, to kind of look through it and kind of see if you guys wanna change something else. I can give you the program then, and we can kind of re-go through it.
Instead of approving this resolution.
I don't think this resolution has anything to do with it.
Okay,
I mean, but unless you guys feel different. The resolution is just increasing the max amount to whatever you guys
I agree.
choose.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve R-16-22 to amend the facade loan program with one exception, raising the limits from $12,000 to $15,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Peter? Aye.
Aye.
Peter, aye.
Jim, aye.
No, it's Jim. Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
It's a treat always
Discussion
coming
and
here.
possible action on backup generators.
So you have a nice wiring, bid in your packet, and then basically where we're at is estimated about 100,000 for the electrical work, which doesn't include the ATS and gas service, 80,000 for the generator itself. You're looking at least 180 plus, and at this point, staff's recommendation is to not move forward with backup generators for the village hall currently.
I'll second that.
Is there like a much scaled down version?
That's what we have.
This is the scaled,
No,
180,000 is
so
the scaled down version?
Our current
It's the
one is the
electrical.
scaled down version.
This is the next level up, isn't it?
Well, and then,
So basically, the gas pipe that we have coming in right now is also inadequate for the size generator we have. So if you try going up
okay.
Next size, yeah.
next size
Watch
up,
that thing.
we're
right here.
still having to pay the 100 grand for the
Piping.
rework. Yeah.
Is there any, so last, I don't know if you guys talked about this last meeting, but the meeting before that, we talked about it, and the idea was, we can't run the heat, we can't run the AC, and this is supposed to be a shelter, right? So it's not a shelter in the winter if we can't run the heat. Okay, so is there a much scaled version where we can just add the furnace? Cause AC, whatever, is it, people get hot and it sucks, you get to run a fan.
So
You got an idea?
discussions that I've had with Rob and also Nathan here is where we sit with the current generator. Where, what is that? Are we at 80%, 40%, 50%, whatever that is? We spoke to John Dury, he's kind of our electrician right now. on stuff. So in the next few weeks here, that we're actually gonna do some tests. We're gonna see what we can do. One of the questions was brought up, bathroom lights. Generator goes on, this is out, we're here in the IC, in this room here because of an incident or something. There's no lights in the bathroom. Yeah, we could do other things, you know, put lanterns in there. We could do a few other things. But if it's not taking that much energy off that generator, can we then tie the bathroom lights into it? Sure, absolutely. So I think we need a little bit more information to see exactly where we sit with the current generator. We don't know right now. The only thing we can do is actually test and see what we can do. To actually put on another unit, be it AC or furnace or whatever, we may not be able to do that with current generators. So, plan B, plan C, whatever it may be. So that was part of our discussions with the facilities into the future. What are we looking at into the future? So Nathan and I have been talking about this a lot. And that's something we need to get this information to the committee, make them recommendations to the board as a whole coming down in the future. So that's your CIP stuff. Do we replace this? Do we put another generator in? I mean, there are some things that we have to.
That's a
do
budgetary
some-
discussion,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, this is a
Yes.
worst case scenario,
Right.
right? It's 20 below zero and, you know, the power goes out and everybody's freezing. And the people who don't have the ability to warm their house with a fireplace or something like that, they need someplace to go. Okay, so, you know, in the worst case scenario, you would look at, we don't even need lights, can we just run the furnace? You know, that would be something to look at under the load. Can you just run the furnace?
Yeah.
You know, and then you can put camping lantern lights around, people will survive. But lights are not as important as it's not 20 below zero.
I think at this point, suggestion going forward is
Yeah.
Alonzo Park potentially doing it when you actually are creating a storm shelter, a FEMA graded one, to look at doing the bigger lift station there, or to fund or to generate backup generator for the lift station, the well, and the pavilion and the storm shelter there, because that'll be an actually graded storm shelter where this one technically isn't,
Okay.
even though it's our IC or Incident Command Center.
And I'm assuming we're looking for grants for that?
Yes.
Because storm shelters, there's big grants for storm shelters.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's all part of the discussions we need to look
Okay.
at. So, you know, first things first, where do we sit actually with this?
Yeah.
So we're not doing the generators, folks, to get information on what we can
Yeah,
do
find out what
as
you can do, let
options
us know.
Yep.
and see what grants are available. for
FYI
that.
to you guys, just FYI to you guys, so we need more
180 days,
research.
a lot of planning.
And that's not all of it yet. You're still talking about gas too.
Yes, I mean, that's
So
something we
it's-
gotta look at too.
It's 180 plus.
Yeah, minimum 180.
Yeah.
Minimum,
Just
I got
curiosity,
that
what
wrong.
would it cost if they put it in the first place?
Less.
less,
Of course.
by far.
Yep.
Okay.
Next.
Okay, we'll go to E, wage and benefit conversation for village employees for 2023.
So this is a preliminary conversation, kind of where we want to go. Obviously, with the economy the way it is, there's no way that we're going to be able to do anywhere near the even 4% raise that businesses have been talking about through WMC or getting, because it would put us over our levy limit already by doing that. So the proposal that I'm giving is doing a smaller raise with some benefit changes. That would be a huge way to retain employees. So I gave a few different areas here. One was vacation. The next one, which is probably what I want to concentrate the most on, which is the healthcare plan, which would be number 3, is what I would suggest going forward with. Would reduce our costs on our employees. For a family right now, currently max out of pocket would be around $2,800. For the single person, it would be, I think it would be 1,400. So the goal would be, from my perspective, to get it down to 500 for a single and 1,000 for a family.
So you made a comment before about the wages exceeding our levy limit.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Wouldn't an increase in benefits do the same thing?
No,
No?
because you're only increasing it, you're not, the increase that you're doing into this benefit for the HRA at least isn't necessarily a promised increase in cost. Because it's an HRA, so you're basically betting that most people aren't gonna reach their max limit. So the increase that the potential max increase for the HRA would be $18,900, which would be about 20% of our levy that we could increase. That would be if every single person maxed out, which
Right.
I think we'd be, we'd all be pretty hurt at that point. So normally we have usually 2 to 4 tops that ever max it out in a year.
Okay.
So technically, it'll be a lot less that you're gonna potentially pay than what you would for raises if you did a 4. I mean, right now, we're at 7.8%, and we are missing 2 more months off of that. Actually 3 of inflation potentially. So
you're talking about an increase of an average of about 2%,
what we can fit.
what we can do?
2% wages, so
What
then,
I would do is I would concentrate on the benefits.
Right,
and
I know
then
that.
If we can if we can only fit 2%, then we do the 2%, and we drop it
On
down.
wages,
Yeah,
but concentrate on the other benefits.
right.
Okay.
And then the 2 other benefits that I'm suggesting heavily is the changes in longevity. The one change is changing it from starting in year 5 at 2% to having it start in year 3 at 1%, year 4 at 1.5%, and then year 5 hitting the 2%. The goal of this is to get one of the benefits that we offer here that sets us aside from other municipalities earlier to the people that we want to stay. So it gets people into feeling the full benefits of the village here, to hopefully retain them.
So,
It also lowers the impact, the initial impact, of a 2% hit per employee that comes on. So like you can see in 2023, the chief, myself, and an officer are all gonna be 2%. So basically the way it works is the more that we have of a big jump, it's gonna hurt us longer than having something that we can slowly increase over time.
so I'm a 12-year veteran.
Yep.
Currently, it's a 3.4% raise annually, correct? Am I reading this right?
This is longevity.
longevity.
That rate.
This is
Yes,
longevity.
Longevity, the only ones that it's really gonna affect are the people that are at year 4 and year 3 next year.
Bonus.
Oh, bonus.
It's a bonus.
Yeah.
So longevity bonus, it shows up.
All right,
So,
but I guess my point is, as I move up, next year I'll be year 13, so.
Nothing changes there.
Nothing changes. The only thing that changes is you get it earlier. Everyone else is, so the people that have it already, they're not gonna see any benefit from this. It's more of getting people on it earlier.
I see what you're doing.
To retain the
sliding it.
employees.
Right.
Okay,
But we're not gonna grandfather those employees. You're looking to bring anyone that is under 5 at this point, not receiving it, to fall under the new plan.
Everyone would be under the new plan
Yeah,
starting
everybody.
next year.
Well, there's a difference though, right? So there's the difference between saying current employees in years 1 through 4, who currently are not eligible until they get to 5. We're now gonna say,
Oh, I would do it retroactively.
that's my
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Because right now, if we grandfather, we'd say that those people still don't get anything until 5, where the
Right,
new
I know,
employee would
yeah.
get.
so the employee at year 4 would start out with a 1.5
Yes.
under the proposal.
Start, for this in 23. Yeah, so then if you look at the next year, the next little thing, it shows There's 3 people that would be affected in this next year. And they're just generic titles, but yeah, so some are starting at the 1.5 and then one's starting at the 1%.
How many 3 to 4 year employees do we have?
Was those my next question?
So you have these 3, 1, 2, 2 more, 3 more, 3 total, I think. Plus you're gonna probably have another 2 in the next
Well,
2 to 3 years
It's
anyway.
these 6 in 2023 if we do the adjusted. I mean, what's the dollar amount of the
So,
effect of this?
well, yeah, so you're
Well,
given, so you wanna give a 2%
So
raise.
that's why you're not
and
approving
then
anything tonight,
you wanna
because it's
give a
gonna
raise
depend
to-
on,
Budget.
right, so what I'm planning on doing is if you guys want to move forward, basically, then I can go through, I can do some predictions on changes in cost and what it will actually be at. Because then I can look at where we're gonna be at potentially for a 2% raise for everyone with all
So this will
these.
affect that as
Right.
well, that's part of
Right.
the whole
So then
money,
I-
so.
They can-
Then I can see what it's gonna be, and then I can say, okay, so we're not gonna be able to make this work at this percentage and lower it down.
So effectively, this is giving the people at the lower end of the seniority a bigger raise. Right, because you're gonna go 2% across, say you go 2% across the board, and then somebody's been here for 4 years now, they get 3.5%. Whereas the person who's been here for 5 years gets 2%, and then they're moving up to the 2%. So
Right.
they're getting 2.5%, the person that is before, for 4 years, is getting 3.5%.
Right.
Money-wise, it makes sense, because those people get paid less, so they've been here, they haven't been here as long typically, so they typically get paid less, so the percentage turns out to be less money.
Right.
But the people who have been here longer are the ones that are more likely to leave. If they, because they're the ones who can garner a larger salary somewhere else. And then you're
Right.
limiting them to the 2% and not changing anything on their behalf.
Correct.
Well,
Except for
but
the
we don't have to
healthcare.
straight line the 2% increase, do we? So, pay rate, right? It could
I
be,
mean, you don't have to, but I think I have yet to hear a complaint from any employee who has been here, who has heard that this is what
no, my point
I'm
is,
proposing.
if you give this, right? So to avoid what you're saying, those that are getting it 3 and 4 that wouldn't have gotten it till 5, you don't have to give them the pay market increase of 2%.
I think you're gonna lose those employees at that point then.
The 3 and 4s?
Yes,
Why? They're getting something that they shouldn't have gotten in the first place.
because I don't think, I can show you the differences in pay and different things that other municipalities have.
But his concern is the opposite direction.
I'm
that
not
you're gonna
worried
lose
about
the
that.
5 and 6s.
I'm not worried about that with this at all. And maybe that's me being ignorant, but I'm just saying from every conversation I've had, I have not heard a single complaint or a single employee question that at all. So that's all I'm getting at.
So this would not affect the police because
It
they
would.
have a contract.
Their contract states
They get
personnel man,
longevity.
so they go with the personnel man
For longevity only.
for
For
longevity
longevity,
and
Okay.
healthcare and
But not for wage increase.
And
I guess.
for wages,
Correct.
it's
not for
yeah,
wages.
the wage will be different.
Vacations,
And vacations is separated.
is it?
Yep. But I'm not necessarily arguing for it. I really,
I would like to see the dollar impact on this, because obviously it's,
well, right, but what I'm trying to do is,
I'm not opposed to the idea, but I'd like to
Right.
see the dollar impact.
yes, and that's why I'm not asking you guys to agree with it, but just the concept of it, if it's something you want me to pursue looking into more. And then I can do some financial background numbers.
I would, but I would say when we do this, that we max out the 18, we don't say only 2 people are gonna max out, we base it on the fact that potential, that full 18.9 impact for the liability, for the insurance. Cause you said we would get an 18.9 impact, but potentially it wouldn't be that bad because not everybody maxes out their.
Right.
Oh.
So,
I would base it on the fact that potentially everyone is, and I know that we
Right.
shouldn't, but that's
Right.
conservative and that's.
no,
the
I
best way to do it.
agree. I understand that.
We don't play that game.
But below that, you can see where we've been the past few years for percentage based on, benefit that's available and what was actually paid out.
I get it, but I
So-
would do it based on
Right, no, I
worst
understand.
case scenario.
That's why I put it in there. But yeah,
How does the, so, Public Works, I understand, so the vacation stuff, Public Works I get, I mean, you're gonna have to run light, I mean, but and there's some overtime, but, how does that affect the PD? I mean, because.
The
that's
vacation
big thing.
technically doesn't unless you allow it to. So that's in their contract as is. So they have the exact same amount of vacation as we have right now. So if you changed it, it doesn't necessarily change their contract because it's written.
Because it's specific in their contract
Right.
versus saying.
So-
refer to
So
the
if we
manual.
change vacation, it doesn't change the PD.
Technically, at this point, no. But I would argue that next time negotiations come
It's gonna
on,
come up,
it's gonna come up
for sure.
as a potential change, and there's a lot of questions about union busting if you deny it or
So
if,
they couldn't ask
Right.
us in the middle to do an amended union contract on vacation? Because we changed the general? So you can't amend the union contract?
Well,
They
you
couldn't
bet.
after
Yeah, that would be the
Sure.
concern though, is that the PD, because of the way the shifts are set up with the PD, they
Right.
already,
the cost is,
Yeah, the
there's
cost goes
actual
up if
cost.
you-
Like when there's public works or admin, there's very little cost.
their
It's
work
more
doesn't get
time
done.
that you lose. So, that's kind of where we're at with the vacation, but like I said, I'm
Yeah.
impartial about the vacation. I would concentrate. Personally, I think the HRA benefit is probably the
Yeah.
best benefit to change, because I think that's the hardest thing that ends up hitting people.
Yeah.
And the longevity is a benefit potentially that just gets people to try to stay long.
I have concerns about vacation.
Yeah, I do too.
Because it becomes overtime in the PD.
Right,
In the Public Works, it means this job didn't get done, it gets pushed off,
right.
right? I mean, it didn't get done, but this is a direct cost.
That's,
And you know that it's gonna come up.
so the other thing with the longevity was a part-time, allowing it for part-time employees as well, is what I'd want to change it for. At the same, it'd be at a percentage, so it's not obviously the same amount. But as of right now, it would only affect one employee for this next year if we did it in '23.
And they currently don't have it.
Correct.
And they have
And-
to reach so many hours. Correct?
What?
They have to reach so many, oh no, I'm
No,
thinking,
no.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
thinking
WRS.
Wisconsin retirement,
Yeah.
never mind. Yeah.
No, but this would just be based, for the part-time, it'd be based on the amount they got paid in the last, during their last year. Yeah, so, you know, it might be a way to maintain some of our part-time public works employees. The library, they can always decide to do this on their own potentially if they wanted to, but I think doing something across the board might benefit to keep and retain people. So, if you don't mind, I'd look into that as well. But I think for the most part, the HRA is what I'm gonna concentrate on the most potentially, but I'm gonna show what it would be for all of it, other than the vacation, I think is a little harder to predict.
One last question before I go.
Yeah.
Longevity, that's a lump sum paid at the end of the year or toward the end of the
It's
year?
paid at their anniversary date.
Oh, anniversary date.
Mhm.
Would it be beneficial to spread that over payroll?
No.
No?
We've thought about it, and actually I argued for it at one point, because it was easier on the
It's easier
payroll
to do.
person.
But-
Well, when it came with overtime, there was a complicated question.
Yeah, but it's a separate line item.
Right, but
And
Would
it's
you-
just divided by
how much,
50.
how much would you enjoy getting 80 cents one day, every pay period, getting an extra 86 cents or whatever it was,
We're getting a bonus.
or getting a bonus of $1,000 on a random day?
Well,
It's
80
nice to
cents,
get
I
that
think
one
you're-
check.
Huh?
It's nice to get that one check
Yes,
on
it's
your
cool.
Is
anniversary.
that paid at the end?
It is,
Their
So it's paid for the
anniversary.
year that they've put in?
No.
yeah.
No, it's paid in
For
advance.
full-time, it's paid for what their salary is.
Yeah.
It's 2% of their salary for that year.
Yeah, but you said it's on the anniversary date, so is it
Right.
for the previous year, or is it for the
It's for their salary of that year.
This,
the salary of
Prior
that
to the
year?
year that they
Yeah.
Okay.
included, or the future
No.
year.
So if my date's on July 7th, or July 9th, so if my pay is at 70 grand this year, and I had 2%, I would get 2% of 70, even though it's not full of last year. It doesn't include what was last year, it's based off of your
Okay.
current
it's based on
salary.
your
Current
current
Okay.
salary.
Yeah, but
On your anniversary.
he's been there a year, 2 years, whatever, to get this, yes. it would be, I think what you're looking at is, yeah,
Yeah,
previous.
what I'm saying is, okay, so
He's
I've
been
been,
there.
I've been working here for 2 years and 364 days. This is my day one of my 3rd year. Do I get my bonus, or do I get my 3-year bonus at my anniversary, at my next
You
anniversary?
get your 1% bonus.
At that day?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, good way to
so
put it.
you're getting it in advance.
And it's gonna be 80 cents.
It's in the 80 cents. You can take your 80 cents.
So when you do your
Buy a soda.
calculations for the longevity adjustment, can you go out a few years, just here's the 2023 impact, and include the part-timer when they get to that point? So, because, you
Yeah,
know,
I can do that.
go maybe to 2025 or something, just so that we can see the impact over the next, because if, you know, that's, now we're getting up to the 5-year mark for everybody, right?
Right,
Then everybody's already accounted for at this point, and we're back on the normal schedule, what we would be.
right.
So I just want to see what the impact is.
Over 5 years for the
Well, just-
part-time or for both?
What is our least amount of time employee that this would affect? 1 year?
Yeah,
So I would want 4 years, because that would be the difference between if we kept on the original plan, where they wouldn't get anything until 5, just to see the overall financial impact of this change each year.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yep.
You're gonna work it out for full and part?
And I would do it with full and part and try to separate them so
Yeah.
that we can say, do we want to include part or not? And do we want to include full?
How, do you want it just based
I would
off-
argue that the part-timer becomes a full-timer after next year.
Well, I just, for clarification, what do you want the raise to be over that 5 years? Because you,
2%, 4%, I don't care. the
do
number.
2%.
Just make sure you know what it is,
Right,
that's fine.
gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, 'cause-
I
You understand where
appreciate,
you're going with, sure. that
I just
makes
want to
sense.
see approximately.
Yeah,
I just appreciate the thinking outside the box, Nathan, and whoever else is involved in this, because I know people are hopping jobs, you know, to look for more pay, and if we can keep our good staff, I'm all for whatever we can do, you know? I think it'll make a huge difference.
We just got to be able
Any
to
other
pay for it.
comments? Okay. We'll go to F, discussion and possible action, approval of emergency AC purchase for well number 1.
so, requesting, it is at $5,000 mark, requesting approval for this. We did fix it last year, this year we had to fix it again, and actually this is a new unit that had been installed. What this is a air conditioner dehumidifier for well number 1, so that it needs to be the environment needs to be in a climate controlled atmosphere, because we have chemicals. So that's the reason for this. It did fail. I wasn't here when this happened. Nathan and Chris said, go ahead and get it fixed, we need it now. So because of the heat and the amount of moisture that was in the building at that time. So it
what-
is an emergency.
What failed? I just trying to
No
understand.
air conditioner, the whole thing.
And
The
how old was
dehumidifier
it?
air conditioner.
How old was it?
We repaired it last year. How
Okay.
old it is, couldn't tell you. It's been in there for a while, but they've done some repairs over the last 3 years to it. I know last year.
No one
we
knows
did
how old that
also.
thing is? I'm asking because
No.
I can see the warranty on this one, and I'm wondering how old, you know.
The other one was not even adequate
Okay,
Wow.
for that area, and I don't think.
That was
that's
another thing too.
Well,
so it was overrun,
Yeah.
it was running too hard for what it was trying to do.
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't meant for the,
The fix
Size.
last year, we thought maybe we could keep it going, but
And that was my
it failed.
My point, I guess, is we repaired it last year, why it shouldn't
Yeah.
have burned out in a year unless it's either inadequate or
Yeah, obviously it's inadequate.
100 years old.
Yeah, it is right at the 5,000 mark, which
But
then
you're-
it comes to you guys for approval. If it's
Okay.
$4,999, then it would be a mute issue, but.
Already done, what do we need?
just approval,
Just
approval.
even though it's already.
So I can pay it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically,
Yeah,
I
got
can
mine.
pay it.
We need a
Yours, Shawna?
motion, don't we? We
Mhm.
need a
Do
motion.
we need a motion?
Yeah.
We do need a
Okay.
motion because we're spending money.
Okay, so, I'll make a motion to approve payment for the ductless single zone heating pump in the amount of $5,000 to Good Guys Heating and Cooling.
I'll second.
Roll call. Sean?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. G, discussion and possible action on recommendation from planning and zoning to approve the signage for the Hortonville Area School District S-1-22.
Why do we have anything to do with this? This is the school.
So when we created the public institution zoning, it allows for multiple signage. The caveat is that it has to get approved through the planning and zoning and board, so that we don't have signs going up there.
So they're gonna put an additional sign on?
Yeah, there's 3 signs that are going up on their building.
Okay,
But-
and
Three.
we only allow one under our current,
No, under the new ordinance, it allows for any, but anything after 1, you need to get separate approval.
okay, thank you. Thanks for explaining it.
Any questions? Otherwise, we need a motion.
Where's it gonna go?
I move to approve the signage for Hortonville Area School District S-122.
It's going on Warner Street, isn't it? No. Is that what it said?
Let's go in front of the school.
Town,
Old elementary.
Town.
Town.
is it
Town
Oak,
and
or
Warner?
Oak dash?
Right, and then there's one on the front, yeah. Isn't it,
It's right in front,
I
right? The old
don't
elementary
remember.
offices,
Is that where?
Where the offices
the
and
old
stuff,
elementary
Oak? Yes.
offices.
There, and then, obviously on the new expansion off of town.
right?
Okay, I'll second. If somebody-
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. H, discussion and possible action on recommendation from planning and zoning to deny the ordinance change for corner lot setbacks.
So this was from planning and zoning, basically for changing the setbacks on a quarter lot for non-accessible street side, 10 feet, and their recommendation is for denial. Part of that is based off of conformity when you're building a new subdivision, so you don't have parcels that are off-centered, or buildings off-centered, so that you don't have ones that are sticking out when you're driving down, that they're all conform. And that was kind of what the recommendation was. Yeah.
Is that's the only reasoning that they had was conformity?
Conformity was one,
I would take issue with that, because I went around and looked, and there's people that are 50 feet back, there's people that are 37 feet back, there's people that are
Right.
150 feet back.
right,
So-
but they're not at,
So it's not.
you're
even-
sticking out into a view corner almost, it's right on the edge there. So now you're gonna have new subdivisions that don't have any type of logical setback of each side. So that's why they agreed that it shouldn't be approved.
Okay,
And the whole reason this came up was obviously the corner lot that was asking, she didn't like the paved concrete,
mhm.
which all of her neighbors seem to have, next door, and everyone else does. And she didn't like the other option of potentially putting another garage there.
Okay, so, the reason that she doesn't like the paved thing, is the same reason similar reasons I wouldn't like it. And the same reason that the neighbors across the street don't like it either, right? Is because the valuation of those homes around there is around $250,000, right? Nobody with a $250,000 home wants to have a slab of concrete and their kid's junk beater car sitting outside next to it, right? That's what it looks like. It looks like
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it looks like. And on top of that, now you have to clear that of snow, and you have to have a vehicle that's parked outside all winter long, right? Which you have a $250,000 home. You have that home because you have the garage, you have the home, and I talked to a builder today, and he said that this actually comes up more than what you would think. He said because you get young people that move into a house, and they have a corner lot, and they are living there for a while, and then they have kids, and then the kids grow up, and they think, we bought this, and when they grow up, we'll just add on a stall on the garage, and we'll have an extra place to park. Well, then they find out that the setback is so much that they can't do that, and they had no idea that that was the case, and they end up putting this ugly thing out, and then saying, okay, somebody's got to park outside. I went around, I took some pictures, I measured it. You can see, you can take a look. You can pass that one, I've seen them all. You can pass that one down the path. I took a picture of the neighbors. It looks like crap. His truck is parked outside.
Right, but it also looks
Oh,
like
that
crap when you have houses that are sticking out, coming down the street, because
Yeah,
there's one on the
okay.
corner by that same area that comes out, that's 10 feet, and it's got also a slab next door to it as well, and it sticks out halfway, and it
Okay.
blocks everything in the back, and then you have your accessory building back there as well that blocks the rest of the viewpoint. So when the other neighbor is driving, reversing out of his driveway, he cannot see cars coming.
Okay,
So
so
then it
that's-
makes it a dangerous situation.
I get it. So, but if you look at the pictures, I put a garbage can out where 13 feet would be from her garage, right? It doesn't block any view. It doesn't block anything. And I took pictures of Mike's, which is right next door. I also went around the neighborhood and took some pictures, which I didn't have time to print out, where people put up trees and they put up shrubs, and you can't see around them at all. And we don't have any rules against doing that. The reason Mike's, which is right across the street, is because on the back of his property line, he has a whole row of evergreens, and they're about between 6 and 8 feet tall, and they're all about this big around. He's got a whole row, which is basically a fence between him and his neighbor. And that, when you're looking at it, when you're coming down that street, when you're looking at it, you can't see any of the traffic beyond those evergreens, which is what's in between there, and that is his little slab. So, I don't think it's a safety hazard. Now, in terms of like the setback, when the building inspector came out and you were out there, and remember I pointed out, I'm like, doesn't that house down there look like it's further in? Yeah, it is. It's 7 feet further in than Tracy's is, and
Yeah.
6 feet in further than the
So-
house next to it.
That was something I pointed out to him too, and that was from another issue that happened from someone else prior. And the option was, do you tell them to remove their house completely because they didn't go by ordinance? Or do you
Yeah,
just?
exactly.
Right, but it looks like crap.
So
The issue is, the whole point of this is to keep everything in conformity.
Yes.
And what you're gonna have is, now you're gonna have some, I have a feeling you're gonna have a lot more backlash.
Well, there isn't that,
Potentially.
okay, so there isn't that many corner lots that have these bigger setbacks already, right? Because all of the older part of town has a much, much smaller setback. So what we're talking about doesn't affect them whatsoever. The only thing that we're talking about is the newer subdivisions, right? That's,
Correct.
what's that?
This is her house.
That's her house right there. Okay.
Wild
You
Wind
see where the
Yours,
garbage can is? That's where the
Brookwood.
garage would come
Yeah,
up.
right.
Okay, so all we're talking about are the corner lots. Now, if you look at the corner lots, how many people that are on the corner lots are actually going to add to their garage? Okay, they're gonna add to their primary
You gotta
structure.
understand, this is in perpetuity.
I'm
forever.
with you,
So
I'm
you're
with you.
talking,
I'm with you.
anytime a house goes down, so you could be on Main Street on a corner, and that corner lot, they could come 10 feet off the setback. And now you have an issue because you have people that are blocking vision corners.
They're closer than that now on Main Street. If you go
Not in
to,
certain areas.
if you go to Spruce
Right.
and 15,
Right.
you can't see past that guy's fence.
That stupid fence on Spruce
You
Street,
can't,
that guy
you
is not-
gotta get in front of the stop sign to be able to see around it. So I don't subscribe to the safety argument because we're
I'm
not
just
plowing
relaying-
people down every day
Right.
in the village,
I'm
right?
just
There aren't-
relaying planning and zoning's
Yes.
opinion,
Yep.
which is what they're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing. And that's all I'm relaying to you.
Well, okay, and I'm presenting my counter to what they have said, okay? Because I think that the number of lots that we're talking about is fairly small, and then the number of potential changes to structures and buildings is even smaller than that. It's a small percentage of that. And if you move forward into newer subdivisions, when you have a new subdivision, somebody builds a corner lot, if it's a nice big lot, they're not building right up to the curb, right? That's what, if you go to Wild Winds, everybody's
Right, that's-
50 feet back, 60
That's if it's
feet back,
built by-
right?
that's
I mean, it's not because we
If it's
made
built
them.
by a homeowner at the time who's already paid for it, correct. But the issue is you have developers who are gonna come in and they're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna keep it closer, because if it's closer, I don't have to do as much work to put it,
Bring
the
the-
driveway all the way back there.
But that
So,
doesn't change the driveway, right?
It-
This is the non-driveway side.
I understand that, but you're making them closer to that intersection too with their driveway.
Show the door here in the front like this one,
She wants a third stall.
but
So-
with the door right here, like this, like just like
I don't know, I haven't
next to
seen
it.
plans. She just wants to have a third stall.
Well, I mean, my argument with like the whole, they're all set back the same, which you've already
They're
said they're
not.
not. But that's based on ones that face this road, not based on ones facing this road. So she's gonna be the same setback on the ones that have the front of their house on this road here.
Mhm.
So there's no different, I would argue that the setback doesn't matter about this road here because that's the front of their house, this is the side of this house.
Yeah.
I don't think that matters at all. I don't see, and to me, where that garbage can is, those cars parked in the driveway the next house down are blocking the view just as bad as,
And if you
The
look on the other
garbage
page,
can
coming
is-
the other way, one vehicle in the driveway blocks
And
more
even-
than what that
and
structure
even the
would.
10 feet that we have to for the sidewalks, I mean, that's ample. I mean, I would argue, you know,
It's 12.
as someone who got a variance for my ridiculous garage, you know, I understand the need and I understand the desire to not have your yard look like some of the people in my neighborhood that I've seen and their stuff. And the other thing is, what if she had a camper? What if she had a big old camper and parked
Yeah.
there? Is there a,
There's not an ordinance, but there's covenants in
Which is
there.
unenforceable.
No, by the village. You can sue.
We don't have a homeowners association,
It
so
doesn't matter.
it's
You can
unenforceable.
No.
We've discussed this before, the covenant's completely unenforceable.
No, not in court.
Oh, okay, so if we take them to court, if they park
Right.
a camper there.
Right. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, their neighbors are not gonna take them to court
I,
for parking a
I
camper.
understand that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
there's ways to get around. that.
Actually, that was one of the things
You're,
when they
you're
talked.
you're also extending that driveway all the way down then,
what do you mean,
Right.
all the way down?
or are you keeping the driveway as is?
It's not my driveway.
I
That
would,
could be, could potentially end up either way.
So
My
so
driveway
then
doesn't,
how
my
wide are
driveway
you
doesn't do
allowing
that.
driveways to go?
Yeah, my
At
driveway
all?
doesn't
Or
do
it's gonna
that.
be the
No.
same?
I don't know, look at my
36 feet
driveway.
is max.
Right,
That's
well-
already in the ordinance.
Yeah,
No.
site
You
goes
can
out
only
like
have it
this.
36
Just the
feet max
apron, right?
Yeah, the apron.
Right,
within the right of way.
That's the apron.
within the right of way.
Because
yeah.
if you go by my house, my driveway is insane,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a regular, like the size apron that I'm supposed to have.
Mhm.
So, which is annoying because the power poles, but that's, I mean, I could see her putting this extra stall in here, this small stall, and then just doing a diagonal thing to connect up to the
That's what mine
driveway.
is. I have a
Just to be able to
three-car
come
garage.
out and turn. I think it would be worse to not let her do it because I don't see the safety concern. I don't see how the sticking out further, and I think any variance is a case-by-case basis, so,
Well, she wouldn't get a variance.
Yeah,
What?
we have to change
Well,
the
it's-
ordinance for setbacks for the side lots.
Yeah,
Is
she
what we
wouldn't
have
get a
to do.
variance. The fact is, variances are very hard to get. Just because they've handed them out in the past doesn't mean that they're should.
I guess I don't see the issue with this one, I don't know.
I don't see a problem with it either, so.
Even if they put sidewalks in, which,
I'm gonna make a motion to change the ordinance to, reduce the setback from 25 feet on the side lots, to, I think probably 10 feet sounds reasonable to add a garage. It's only 9-foot door. So that would bring it to 15 feet.
both sides are 10.
10 feet.
Road.
So if you reduce the setback to 25 foot for the side lot, that would be 12 foot for the sidewalk, and 15 foot for the setback would be 27 feet off of the road. 10 feet wouldn't make a huge difference in conformity, and it definitely won't make, a
Just
buffer.
10 feet,
Yeah,
rather, or are you saying 10 feet setback?
10 feet less. So go from 25 to 15.
I wouldn't have had a problem too much with that, but
Yeah,
that's not what she requested, so.
well, I actually went and I measured hers
Yeah, I know.
multiple times.
I know. I
And
did
she
too.
is, she actually has 4 feet she can add already.
Right.
Because she is, 41 feet off of the curb from her structure, from the foundation, she's 41 feet to the curb. So she already has 4 feet. So a 10 foot, and that fixes Mike right across the street too, because he's actually further off. And if he had 10 feet, he could put a easy full stall on his if he wanted to.
I wouldn't go by curb, I'd go by property lines.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so how
just
does that-
FYI, property lines.
So, okay.
Don't go off the curbs, because the curbs could be off 6 inches, they could be whatever and that. So they may not be directly within the right-of-way section, they may be off a little bit, the road maybe, curb
Okay.
gutter, road. Go off the property lines, if you're gonna
Right.
have any dimensions, property lines.
So how do you know where the property line
You should have posts in the ground, and if you don't,
is?
and
What I mean
there's
by the
nothing
curb,
there,
how do you know where the property is? Or is the property line at right away?
Right away.
Right
And
away.
there's
It's right
posts,
away.
there's posts in there somewhere?
should be
In the
posts
corners.
within, yep. Like your property, you should have posts out in front there, for sure.
The corners of your property.
The corners of your property,
Yeah,
you
buried.
should have posts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you have to pay for a survey to be done.
or yes, yeah, to verify that.
It's the same thing we do for fencing.
Okay, so is the curb gonna be off by 4 feet?
Could be. Couldn't tell you. I've seen it where it's been off actually 10, 15 feet, where the road's actually been on one side of the right of way. So, in this case, it may be right in the middle. I don't know. It's gotta be verified.
Okay. So the building inspector told her she has no space at all. And when I measured to the curb, she's got an extra 4 feet from what our current
Okay.
setbacks are.
Remember,
So I could-
where we measure is based on GIS currently. So
Okay.
when he said that she has no room, it's because our GIS said it's 25. That's not accurate 100%. So that's why he said that. But yeah. So she may have room, but I can't tell you how much.
Okay, so what do you do in the case where you find out that some of that property belongs to the road?
They
How
have
do
to
you
remove it.
fix that?
They remove it.
Remove it.
They're already in,
They're already
They're already-
impinged within the right of way.
right.
Yep. Then it's
So,
gotta go.
I mean,
No, I mean, if 4 feet of the grass doesn't belongs to nothing. Right, it's supposed to be road, and then you have the 12-foot right of way, and then the 25-foot setback. How do you fix that 4 feet?
Do we do what we did to the house that was by the cemetery and just say, because otherwise they can't walk around their house?
I guess I'm confused on what you're asking.
Okay, so what I'm saying is if she already has 4 feet, then
But
then
GIS
modifying
does
this
not.
by 10, modifying this by 10 foot, sort of fits everything, right? But if GIS says, well, yeah, she only has 25 feet, she can't do anything, then 10 feet's gonna be kind of tight to get into there.
Then where does the 4 feet belong?
Yeah, so the only way that works out is if there's 4 feet
GIS,
of
like I
yard
said,
somewhere.
GIS can be off.
Yeah,
It can be up to
That,
3
that's
feet
not
or
how we
more.
would do it if someone was questioning if she's off, I guess. Otherwise, if she's worried about the setback, then she'd have to get someone to come in and see where her lines are. Or she could probably find them. Most people can, and especially in newer neighborhoods, can easily find the corners of their lot by looking in the ground. It's just metal pins in the ground.
okay,
So,
Yep,
I can
absolutely.
find metal pins in my
and
room.
assuming they're put in the right spot.
Right.
They're supposed to be 12, they should be 12 feet off the curb
or so,
or
yeah.
so, not 16.
You can
or-
get relative, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they should be about
To
12 feet off
find
the
the
curb.
pins.
Right.
Fine.
Okay,
Don't go by the back of curb. Maybe off.
okay.
That way.
We gotta
Well,
find the
I'm
pins.
gonna make a motion to change ordinance O-3-22 to reduce the setback for corner lot setbacks, non-accessible side streets from 25 feet down to 15 feet.
Is there a second?
I second. I don't see a problem with it.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm gonna oppose it just based on the committee last night.
Okay, motion carried. I, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion? There are none. 10, reports of village officials. A, clerk treasurer.
My report was in the packet.
Any questions for Jane? No. We'll go to B, director of public works.
Sorry, no report.
Okay. C, police chief, and Chris is out.
Have we heard any updates on the signs?
They're all up except for the 6 that we're waiting on.
Okay.
Done.
And any ideas on,
No,
no ideas?
I didn't have a chance to talk to Chris and see,
What was
next
printed
week
wrong?
maybe,
Yeah, what did they say?
What?
What was wrong with them?
The
name,
What did it say?
village of, what was it?
Creek, something Creek, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like,
What?
Yeah, she told us that.
Don't
They had the wrong name.
It was-
Yeah.
Some-
We got somebody else's stuff.
basically what it was is they didn't read the email. They took the image from the email, which was from their website,
And
and then
reprinted
just
one.
reprinted it.
Yeah, right.
And right there, right next to it says, of course, please put in Village of Hortonville instead of blank blank. I can't remember.
It was spelled out within it.
Right.
It's like a Walmart birthday cake.
Yeah.
And did we send the signs back?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what
Someone
we
didn't
did is we
understand.
actually, we got the post in, we started from the end, back,
Mm-hmm.
the last part, and worked our way forward to the beginning. The beginning signs are the ones that, so we're just waiting for the beginning signs and then we can get them up.
Do we have any option to, before the signs are up, to start letting people do this? We're pushing up to the,
No.
okay. Okay,
Huge liability.
liability, okay.
Can't confirm nor deny.
Okay.
Oh, I can confirm that.
Absolutely, right.
Okay, thank you.
It's an enforcement.
D, library director, and Ally is out. E, attorney.
I don't have an update. I think this is my 1-year anniversary. I wanted to say thank you. I really
Oh,
enjoyed
wow.
it.
Yeah.
You didn't get the memo to bring snacks, did you?
I didn't think about it. I told Nathan we listed our house for sale today, so it's been a little bit crazy.
Oh.
But, yeah, my first meeting here was the week before I had my son.
Yeah.
I remember I was so scared I was gonna come here and my heart was gonna break on my like first meeting in Hortonville. But I mean, honestly, I very much enjoyed working with you and really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Being here.
Got cake.
Next time.
Next time, no,
Well,
no
next time
cake.
Rich will be here. Then I'll bring cake. How's that?
Card free.
Oh, stop.
Gee whiz,
You don't have to
it's a
eat
big
it.
deal.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the ATV sign, Village of
Yeah.
whatever creek.
On the
Great.
cake,
On the cake.
yeah, and post it up on one of the,
Shit's
Oh, mercy. F, administrator.
My report's in the packet, most of the stuff we kind of went over, but kind of still looking at doing some more of the, looking through the organizational review that we had done. Just certain things we were looking at, in-house stuff mostly, but also looking at potential long-term planning stuff, so that's all we've kind of been doing a lot of. TID 6 paperwork is in its final draft now. I'm just reviewing it again before we are ready to propose it to the planning and zoning and here, the county, you guys, and so we'll be moving forward on that soon.
Any questions for Nathan? Okay, we'll go to G, building permit report. There's none. 11, communications and miscellaneous business. A, Black Otter Lake District News.
We had a really long meeting last night. Just really was. Nathan was there, Jeannie was there, it was long. Discussed repair of the harvester. We got an estimate for $25,000 to repair everything but the motor engine, if I recall, right?
Correct.
So we asked for a little bit more detail on that because, just the pricing and labor and that kind of thing, a little bit of a breakdown. So that's going to happen. I think he's coming to meet with Al and Chris. I don't know if you're involved in that, Craig, or just Chris, but, the man who would do the work, who's referred by a reputable place. And we also want a warranty of some sort on the work. We also discussed possible purchase of a new harvester. Again, looking at repair parts, the availability, we're not sure. Purchasing a new one would be a year out as far as getting it. So that will be discussed at the annual meeting on August 22nd. A culvert on the trail failed, and I don't know if I told you about that or not. It actually collapsed. There's a hole in the middle of the trail, of the Wyowash Trail. The culverts were put in by the Blackwater Lake District, so that's another expense we'll be having. There's 3 culverts on the north end, and then farther in, there's 3 more, and it's the second one in that failed. People are just going around it, which is kind of,
Did they plate that, Pat? I didn't go out there.
Did
Did they
they
put a big
what?
plate, put a big plate across that?
no, it's open. And I guess my concern is there's no sign at the beginning of the trail. You walk down the trail and there it is, with cones. It's roped off, but I mean, it's a drop. But people are just going
I
around.
thought the Parks Department went out there and did something, but oh my God.
Not as,
But there's nothing up at all?
Just cones.
there's cones.
But no
and-
advance warning.
And it's interesting because I just read this article in the AARP magazine about this woman who was biking on this trail at a national whatever, and all of a sudden she came to this gate which said, do not go any farther, whatever. She hit it and flipped over, and they could be sued because there wasn't a warning. So
I hear
I think the gate was
Gate
the
saying
warning.
don't
Yeah,
cross.
going further. She
Well-
went further.
well, yeah, I know, common sense would tell you, but, and they said recreational immunity, but they still had to pay, so I don't.
It's
I-
county,
it's county, but still.
so,
But the county's the
Oh my
one
God.
that put the cones out there.
yeah.
And it says road closed, not trail, road closed, but everybody, bikes, walkers,
That's a choice.
went
Yeah.
around,
That's a
Well,
choice.
yeah,
so,
still.
I had a case when they
Oh,
were
damn.
filming Public Enemies down in Oshkosh where someone moved the cones and then a lady fell and.
yeah.
And that's,
So are we responsible for that?
No.
No.
County.
Oh,
We're
County trail.
responsible for the culverts from what
But
we've
not the
been
signs.
told. Pardon me?
But not the signs to warn?
No, because that's the
Okay.
trail, it should be, but,
should be no problem.
we could maybe, I can email Lauren and just say that there's something more they could do. We had a discussion of the bylaws, basically you go by a statute, chapter 33, whatever, for, lake districts. That we have an option to move to 7 commissioners instead of 5. 2 would still be appointed. We didn't go anywhere with that discussion. Also talked about how we're notifying people of the annual meetings. So this year, we're going to do a mailing, a letter saying this is what's on the agenda, instead of just having it posted. It's gonna go to every Blackwater Lake District. Nathan got that list for us. So they know about the meeting. We're gonna have food again, hopefully to have better turnout, just so we can, help people realize how much needs to be done and the impact everything's having. We drafted the 22-23 budget, looking at possibly 2 budgets, because if we have to take out a loan for harvester, culverts, that type of thing, we want to be prepared for that. So Nathan generously offered to help our treasurer with that process. Annual meeting, August 22nd, it's a Monday at 6 o'clock down at Alonzo Park. Everybody's invited to come.
I have a question on voting. In the bylaws, you vote by raising hand, or do you vote by writing on a piece of paper?
So, when I was looking at the bylaws, it says secret ballot or but they're supposed to be separate people counting. So there's some things we need to tweak to do it right. There's supposed to be a nominations committee to get, but just like we talked about, finding people to be on committees has been hard. But I think historically, the Blackwater Lake District, we talked about this last night, people don't know what it is. You know, I really didn't know what it was. So I think if we can generate interest and attendance, I think we can, you know, improve our procedures, because it's just been kind of, you know, not run tightly as it should according to the statutes.
It would be nice if, people that attend the meeting could vote in private, you
And I,
know.
yeah,
Is it-
and I think.
I think they'd be more apt
Is
to
it-
attend
is it
and
open voting?
vote, you know.
Pardon me?
I don't understand, is it open voting? Like,
Basically, in the past, it's been whoever wants to volunteer because no one wants to be on it.
And
okay,
I don't think
But
that
even
it's,
from a voting standpoint, is it just
There
raise your
wasn't a
hand
voting,
or?
it was just all volunteer because they didn't have other options.
and what was happening is there'd be an opening on the board. This last year, somebody I think resigned because of health reasons, so we said we need a treasurer. So,
Which basically you elect commissioners for
yes,
3-year cycles.
yep,
And then every year, those commissioners at the annual meeting choose who's gonna be the president, secretary, and the
treasurer.
treasurer.
So after the annual meeting, that's adjourned, then the 5 people that are on the board vote on officers.
But that's
But it hasn't been really going
Done
that
that
way.
way.
So there's one commissioner spot open this year. Al's term is up, so anybody that wants to be on a commissioner can run. So,
this
and
is at
then-
Alonso?
Yeah,
pardon me?
Yeah, it's
Like
gonna be
in
at
the
Alonso.
pavilion?
yep.
Okay, is it, I've never been to one, so excuse my ignorance, is it a structured meeting like this, or is it,
It should
No.
be, right?
No.
It's supposed to be,
There's food there.
what's it?
There's food
Yeah,
there.
yeah, no, I mean,
but
but
it has set
as
bylaws,
far
it
as
has
input
procedural.
and from
Yeah.
people
Not,
show
not
up,
really.
no?
It's a little more informal, I would say, than this,
Okay,
where, you know, residents speak if they want to during a certain time. But,
okay.
I mean, they sit up in front and they do the minutes normally, but,
So it's closer to our committee meetings?
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would say so.
Yes,
Okay, so it's an open interaction type of a thing?
Yeah.
but
Okay.
yeah, you would be an elector, so would you. Anybody living in the village has a vote.
So, but you get to vote? If
For
you
the
just show up, you
commissioner.
get to vote
Right.
Mhm.
on whatever
Any-
they're talking about?
Any property owner, or if it's a business that's a property owner, they can appoint someone to be an elector. Am I saying that correctly?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was confused by that, so, okay.
Their elector, I don't think, can be on the board, but they can vote.
They can vote.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So the board just decides the agenda as to what you're talking about, what you're gonna vote on, and then whoever happens to show up to that particular meeting gets a say? They all get a vote?
We're supposed to have the agenda posted ahead of
Yeah.
the annual meeting.
There's certain things the board can't do, and they have to do at the annual meeting,
Okay,
like purchasing the harvester would be one that they would
Okay.
have to do at the annual meeting every
Okay.
year.
Raising, can the board raise the assessments?
Yes,
Or, okay,
Mhm.
couldn't remember.
you don't
is that
have to,
some-
it's
yeah.
all done, yeah, it's similar to like a town,
Yeah.
to be honest, how a town chairman works.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
at the annual meeting, you can raise the levy, I don't really know if there's a limit. 2.5%, I think.
2.5, yep, and we're at
Or
0.03,
it is the mill rate,
and we're at
the max mill
0.03.
rate, so.
So we have room there for funding too. So anyway,
Any
it's a
others?
long meeting.
Thank you.
Questions, or are we good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District news.
We had a meeting, and on the 13th, next one's gonna be October 12th. The fire department, to date, they got a nice new thing they're giving to us, so if anybody wants, they have all the calls, where they went, what they were, vehicle accidents, service calls, structure calls, vehicle fires. Right now, they have 59 total calls, and they average about 80 a year. The fire department reserve fund is $21,090.36. The equipment fund is $10,768. Where did I get there? There's that EMS. That's EMS. Sorry, that's the EMS fund. The fire department fund is, budget's $34,127, and the equipment fund is $27,950. EMS is at $21,090, and the equipment fund is at $10,768. They had the assistant EMS retire from the position. Mike Tolman. He's been with EMS for 15 years. So Tracy's trying to find somebody to fill that, and doesn't have anybody jumping at the chance to become the assistant. I know Mike and Tracy were the ones who would always come to the meetings, and it seemed like they were the primary responders. And Mike has been doing it for a really long time, but he drives truck, and he had a scheduling conflict, and my understanding is he used to be a part of the fire department, and then switched over to EMS and did that for 15 years. So, that's a long time, thanks to him. But they do need somebody to fill that spot. They're pushing forward. We approved back a couple meetings ago to help them pay in advance for training, because they were having trouble getting people to apply. So their schooling is what, $450 or something like that. So we, as the village, the EMS in part of their budget kicks in the $450 to pay for their schooling, to get their qualifications and certifications to be able to be in part of the EMS here in Hortonville. And then as long as they pass, it's theirs. I don't know if there's any recourse for us to get the money back. I know there's a little form for them to fill out. That's for them to sign. If they don't pass or they quit, they're supposed to pay it back. But that's going fairly well. It sounds like they're pushing a few people through, and they've got a couple of people added from that program. Other than that, that's all I got. If anybody wants to take a look at all the calls from the fire department.
Their tournament is next weekend.
What's that?
Their tournament.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, the softball tournament, raffle tickets, is next weekend out at Otto Miller. It's their big fundraiser.
Do you have more tickets to sell?
It's, actually they ran on tickets, so they had to get some more printed. Softball is 6 p.m. on Friday, and then 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. So it starts at 6 on Friday. So Friday late or Friday early evening, and then all day Saturday. And they're gonna have food and stuff
That's
like that.
next weekend.
They have raffle baskets.
That would be
and-
July 29th and 30th.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, we'll go to C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report and News is in the packet. D, Hortonville Civic Association, and Peter is out. E, Senior Activities Committee.
We met this afternoon, with our appointed committee, discussed basically the calendar for the rest of the year. We're hoping to do something for Veterans Day in collaboration with the Legion, but I haven't been able to connect with them yet. We're going to have a pickleball kickoff event on September 15th is the day, I think I have the day right, it's a Thursday, in the morning. I spoke with a man here in Hortonville, Roy Hintz, who is willing to help us out, kind of advertise or get people down there and hopefully interested. So the senior activities are gonna sponsor that with probably ice cream when we're done playing. Worked on Autumn Fest. We're gonna have the features, or the theme is going to be History of Hortonville. Reed Schneider is going to be the main speaker. He's here in town. And we are looking for ideas for meals right now. That's being held Tuesday, October 11th. Other discussion on senior center, community center. We kind of keep that on the burner just to keep it in the discussion. And I think that's it. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Any questions for Pat? Okay, we'll go to 12 comments and suggestions from citizens present, and there are none. And then 13, I need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under state statute 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Okay. We need 14, 5 minutes recess to clear the meeting room. 17, any action on matters discussed in closed session? There are none. 18, I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now adjourned.